The rain fell in thin silver threads over the Bosphorus, veiling the grand silhouette of the Turkish Palace Hotel, where Eastern opulence met the cool logic of the West. It was nearly midnight when the scream tore through the velvet hush of the corridor. Moments later, a chambermaid ran downstairs, breathless, insisting she had found a man lying motionless on the polished marble floor, eyes wide, lips frozen mid-plea. Chapter 1. A Palace Under Shadows. The rain over Istanbul that evening behaved not like an ordinary rainfall, but as though the heavens themselves were drawing silver curtains across the ancient city. Each thread of water glittered faintly in the lantern light that lined the waterfront of the Bosphorus. The great strait, dark and restless, churned with the night wind, its waves lapping against the stone foundations of the Palace Hotel, a splendid Ottoman relic reborn as a sanctuary for the wealthy, the powerful, and the curious. Inside its golden halls, silk banners hung heavy with humidity, swaying faintly as if stirred by invisible hands. The marble floors, polished to a mirror's sheen, reflected the flickering torch lamps that had been lit for ambiance, though electricity hummed quietly behind every wall. The palace was a place where centuries met, where the ghosts of sultans brushed past the perfumes of debutantes, and where the modern world crept quietly into the Ottoman grandeur. Hercule Poirot, traveller of refined tastes and most particular habits, arrived at the palace precisely at 9 o'clock. The great Belgian detective, small in stature but towering in intellect, paused beneath the carved archway as a bellhop hurried forward to assist him. Poirot's suitcase, a compact leather case that held exactly what he needed and nothing more, was taken reverently by the young man. Poirot lifted his chin, observing the entryway through the glass doors. "Ah," he murmured with a small, appreciative smile. "How charming! The East she knows how to decorate." His immaculate moustache, two perfect dark curves that he tended as carefully as one might tend a rare orchid, twitched slightly in satisfaction. The hotel manager, Mr. Yilmaz, greeted him personally with a bow and ushered him inside. They had barely reached the grand reception area when the atmosphere shifted. A tremor of noise, hushed, uneasy, was spreading among the guests like ripples on a pond. Poirot noted everything at once. The stiffening of spines, the quickening of steps, the subtle exchange of troubled glances. "Is something amiss?" Poirot inquired. Mr. Yilmaz forced a tight smile. "Only a small disturbance, monsieur. A guest suffered a fainting spell earlier. Nothing of concern." Poirot raised an eyebrow. "A fainting spell? And yet the whisperings suggest something more dramatic." Before the manager could reply, a clap of thunder cracked across the sky, echoing through the corridors. Moments later, a chambermaid came rushing down the grand staircase, her apron soaked with rain and tears alike. She grasped the railing to steady herself as she gasped for breath. Poirot stepped forward immediately. "Mademoiselle, pray calm yourself. You are safe. Speak slowly." She swallowed hard, eyes wide with shock. "Sir, monsieur, they told me to bring fresh towels to the northern wing, the old wing, the one closed for repairs." Mr. Yilmaz stiffened. "You went into the restricted section." I only went to the corridor, sir. The door to the Sultan's suite was open. I thought perhaps someone had left it unlocked accidentally." Poirot already sensed where this was going. "And what did you find?" he asked softly. Her voice quivered. "A man, monsieur, lying on the marble floor. He wasn't breathing. I touched his hand. It was cold, so cold." A collective gasp rippled through the lobby as guests turned their attention fully to the terrified maid. Poirot's expression shifted instantly to seriousness. "There is no time to waste. Take me to him." The corridor of the Sultan's wing was the very opposite of the palace's warm hospitality. Here the lights flickered, shadows clung to the ceilings, and the air smelled of old incense, dust and neglect. The walls were decorated with faded tapestries depicting long-dead sultans with solemn eyes that seemed to watch intruders with disapproval. A velvet rope blocked access to the final hallway, but the knot had been cut. Poirot bent to examine it, running his fingers along the frayed ends. "Not torn," he murmured, "cut, and quite cleanly." He continued down the hall, the sound of his polished shoes clicking rhythmically against the marble. The maid followed, hands shaking uncontrollably, while Mr. Yilmaz hovered behind them, wringing his fingers in distress. The Sultan's suite lay at the far end, its heavy wooden doors carved with crescents, stars, and swirling Ottoman motifs. One door hung slightly ajar. Poirot approached slowly, every sense on alert. Inside, the lights flickered, casting wavering gold shadows across the enormous chamber. Poirot saw the body instantly. A man in his 40s, sharply dressed in an impeccably tailored suit, lay face up on the floor. His dark hair was neatly combed, his shoes polished, his cufflinks gleaming. But his eyes, wide, glassy, staring into a void he would never leave, were unmistakably those of the dead. Poirot knelt beside him. "Mon Dieu!" The man's right hand was clenched tightly around a scrap of torn paper. Poirot pried it open gently. 3 words scrawled in hurried ink: "Trust no one." He tucked the note into his pocket and continued his examination. There was no blood, no apparent wound, no weapon. Death had taken him quietly, too quietly. Poirot inhaled deeply. A faint note of sandalwood perfume, and something metallic, curious. He looked to the chambermaid. "Did you touch anything?" "No, monsieur. Only his hand, I swear it." "Très bien." He studied the victim's face. A hint of desperation lingered in the slack muscles. The mouth seemed frozen mid-plea, caught somewhere between shock and final awareness. "Who is he?" Poirot asked. Mr. Yilmaz answered slowly. "His name is Adrian Whitcomb, a British antiquities dealer staying in one of our royal rooms. He checked in 2 days ago." Poirot's moustache twitched. An antiquities dealer? In Istanbul? In a palace filled with relics? It is, shall we say, suggestive. Before Mr. Yilmaz could respond, a new voice entered the conversation. "Inspector Kemal Arslan, Istanbul Police." A tall man with a neatly trimmed beard and sharp observant eyes stepped through the doorway. His coat was damp from the rain, and his expression was firm, bordering on severe. Inspector Arslan surveyed Poirot briefly. "You must be the Belgian detective I have heard of." Poirot rose with a small bow. "At your service." The inspector walked a slow circle around the body. There are no signs of struggle, no weapon, no forced entry. Yet we have a dead man in a sealed suite. Poirot clasped his hands behind his back. "Precisely, Inspector. What we have here is a mystery that presents itself with admirable efficiency." The inspector gave him a dry look. "This is not a matter for admiration." "No, perhaps not," Poirot conceded. "But it does invite, how you say, tidy investigation." While the inspector made notes, Poirot scanned the chamber. The furniture, though draped in sheets, retained rich ornamentation: gold leaf, carved ivory, intricate mosaics. A thick layer of dust coated most surfaces, but not all. Poirot gestured toward a brass-framed mirror on the far wall. "You see, Inspector? Fingerprints, fresh ones. Someone touched this mirror recently." Arslan frowned. "Perhaps the victim?" "No. Look at the height. Too high for his stature." He paced next to a small console table, where the dust had also been disturbed in a peculiar oval shape. Something rested here, something of note, and it is missing. What? The inspector asked. Poirot examined the shape carefully, tracing the velvet lining with a fingertip. A box, perhaps, a display case, of a size appropriate for a jewel. Mr. Yilmaz swallowed audibly. You cannot mean— Ah! Poirot interrupted. So there is something missing? The manager hesitated. A relic, monsieur. A ruby once belonging to an Ottoman sultan. It has never been displayed openly. Only a few know it is even kept in this suite. Poirot gave a small, satisfied nod. And now, one of those few lies dead upon the floor. Thunder struck again. This time, the lights cut out completely. The room plunged into absolute black. From the darkness came the soft sound of someone's breath, quick, panicked, and then the unmistakable shuffle of retreating footsteps. Poirot's voice sliced through the dark like a knife. Who is there? Stop at once! A door slammed somewhere down the hall. The lights flickered back on after several tense seconds. Inspector Arslan drew his pistol and ran into the corridor. Poirot followed quickly, but the hall was empty save for the echo of the closing door. The shadowy palace seemed to tighten around them, as though the walls themselves conspired to protect the secrets they held. Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Inspector," he said calmly, "I believe we have just witnessed our first clue." Arslan looked frustrated. "I saw no one." "Non, but someone saw us, and they do not wish to be seen." Poirot returned to the suite doorway, glancing once more at the lifeless Whitcomb. A man dies holding a warning in hand, a jewel disappears, and someone lurks in the shadows. He closed his eyes briefly, letting the weight of the place settle around him. This palace, Inspector, is no longer merely a hotel. He looked at the flickering lamps, the long corridor, the carved doors that seemed to hide stories behind every panel. It has become a labyrinth of secrets. A gust of wind moaned through the open window, rippling the curtains. Poirot felt a presence behind him, a soft shuffling in the dim hallway. When he turned, he saw only darkness. But someone had been there, watching, listening, and retreating before discovery. Poirot clasped his hands neatly, his expression sharpening with resolve. "Murder has come to the Turkish palace," he murmured, "and Hercule Poirot shall find him." Chapter 2. The Sultan's Suite. The rain had eased by morning, though the sky remained cloaked in a dim, pewter gloom. Dawn crept reluctantly across the Bosphorus, its pale light filtering through the palace windows in hesitant streaks. The Ceremonial Palace Hotel, ordinarily vibrant with the laughter and chatter of wealthy travellers, carried an aura of subdued tension. Servants walked briskly, whispering behind gloved hands. Guests lingered in the lobby longer than usual, feigning interest in newspapers while their ears strained to catch fragments of conversation from passing staff. Hercule Poirot, having slept only 3 hours but appearing immaculate as ever, stepped out of his suite precisely at 8 o'clock. His shoes gleamed, his moustache was groomed to perfection, and his eyes carried the cool sharpness of a man whose mind had processed every detail of the previous night multiple times before sunrise. Inspector Kamal Arslan was already waiting for him near the cordoned-off northern corridor. "You rise early," Arslan remarked. Poirot smoothed his lapel. "One sleeps lightly, Inspector, when murder lurks in the corridors." A faint smile threatened to twitch at the inspector's lips, though he suppressed it. "We have secured the area. I have ordered my men not to disturb anything in the Sultan's suite." "Très bien," Poirot replied. "Then let us begin the true investigation." The northern wing, leading to the Sultan's suite, felt heavier in the morning light than it had the night before. The halls, lined with portraits of Ottoman rulers, stern-eyed men in turbans and robes, seemed to gaze upon Poirot with quiet judgment. The lingering scent of incense from a bygone era infused the corridor, mingling with the dampness of the storm outside. As Poirot and Inspector Arslan approached the suite, a guard saluted stiffly and stepped aside. Poirot paused at the door. The carved crescents and stars shimmered faintly in the dim light. "History," Poirot murmured, "is often a witness to crimes of its own." Arslan gave him a curious look. "Do you believe this murder is tied to something historical?" Poirot raised a finger. "I believe, Inspector, that nothing happens without a past, especially not murder." He pushed open the heavy door. Something about the room felt different. The previous night, Poirot had been too focused on the corpse to examine the atmosphere. Now, with the body removed for autopsy, the chamber revealed itself fully. Dust hung in the air like faint ghosts. The furniture was draped in white linens, save for a few pieces that had clearly been touched recently. The marble floor bore the faint imprint of footsteps, Whitcomb's shiny black shoes. And another pair, lighter, narrower, likely belonging to a woman. Poirot gestured. "Inspector, observe, the small prints are recent. They crossed the room to the mirror. Mademoiselle chambermaid mentioned the door was open when she entered. Someone was here before her." Arslan crouched to examine the prints. "A woman, possibly, but not the maid." "No," Poirot said. "She walked into the room only once, and those prints are too symmetrical to be hers." He moved further in. The draped furniture created shadowed forms, like silent witnesses to the night's drama. A tall wardrobe stood with its doors slightly ajar. A desk lamp flickered uncertainly, again a sign of last night's power disturbances. Then there was the console table. Even under its dustcloth, the locked box-shaped outline was unmistakable. Poirot lifted the cloth. The velvet-lined depression remained, empty. "Where is the box?" Arslan asked sharply. "Ah, but it is the wrong question, Inspector," Poirot replied, tapping the velvet. "The correct question is, what exactly was missing from this box?" Arslan crossed his arms. "The palace manager claims it held a ruby." Poirot tilted his head. "That is what he told us. But this indentation, see here, the shape is not that of a loose stone. It is elongated, tapered. This velvet once held something that was not a mere gem." "A handle?" Arslan asked. "Just so." Poirot gestured toward one end of the indentation. "This is the outline of a hilt. The ruby, I suspect, was not a jewel kept for admiration. It decorated a weapon." Arslan looked startled. "A dagger?" "A ceremonial one, most likely. Ottoman royalty loved such things. And our Mr. Whitcomb, expert in antiquities, would have known exactly what he was stealing." Arslan frowned. "Stealing, are you certain?" Poirot inhaled deeply, letting the musty room's scent fill his senses. "I do not believe Mr. Whitcomb came here last night voluntarily, nor by accident, and note, there is no forced entry. Someone with access allowed him in, or lured him." He paced toward the mirror, brass-framed, dustless in the centre from fresh fingerprints. Poirot examined them closely. "A woman touched this. Someone tall enough to reach the upper portion." Arslan stepped beside him. "Lady Harcourt." Poirot did not answer directly. "We do not yet accuse. We only observe." He traced the faint outline of a palm. Tall, slender fingers, the touch of someone accustomed to luxury. Arslan raised an eyebrow. "You can tell that?" Poirot lifted his chin. "One does not cultivate a moustache such as mine without learning to cultivate observation." Poirot moved to the arched window, its silk curtains swaying slightly in the morning breeze. The lock was unlatched. Arslan noticed immediately. "Was this open last night?" Poirot shook his head. "No. Inspector, look here. The rain outside is heavy, no? Yet the sill inside is dry. Someone opened this window after the storm." Arslan stiffened. "To escape." Poirot leaned over the sill. The drop was substantial, but not impossible. Below lay a small balcony, and below that a narrow ledge. Poirot hummed thoughtfully. Risky, but a desperate person does desperate things. He closed the window and locked it. Whoever escaped did not wish to be seen leaving through the door. Inspector Arslan checked his notes. Whitcomb was last seen at dinner around 7 o'clock. He dined alone. Oh? Poirot raised an eyebrow. The solitary meal, always a sign someone is hiding something. He told the waiter he expected a guest later that evening, the inspector added. Poirot nodded slowly. The murderer. Or an accomplice, perhaps. But consider this. Mr. Whitcomb was a man of confidence, charm, and cunning. He would not meet an enemy alone in a darkened, abandoned suite. Poirot turned sharply. But someone he trusted? Yes. Someone who knew the palace well enough to guarantee discretion. Poirot straightened his tie. We must learn who he spoke to, whom he quarrelled with, whom he feared. For a man does not right trust no one unless he is certain betrayal stalks him. Poirot turned his attention to a wall-mounted tapestry depicting a sultan in full regalia, embroidered with threads of gold and garnets. Something about it seemed off. He stepped closer. Inspector, he said quietly, note the way the tapestry hangs. Arslan joined him. It looks normal. Does it? Look at the bottom corner. Poirot pointed. Dust everywhere except a small triangular patch. Someone lifted this tapestry recently. Arslan's eyes widened. Search behind it. Together they pulled the thick fabric aside. Behind it, a recess in the wall. Inside the recess, something glinted faintly. Poirot reached in carefully and pulled out. A single ruby chip, red as blood, sharp-edged, no larger than a fingernail. The inspector inhaled sharply. So the ruby was here. Poirot shook his head. No, this is not a loose stone of a royal ornament. This is, he lifted it to the light, a fragment, a chip broken from something larger, likely the ceremonial dagger's jewel. Arslan's face hardened. So the weapon was here, and someone removed it. Poirot slipped the ruby carefully into an envelope. This chip will tell us more about the final struggle than the victim's body. Arslan frowned. Struggle? But Whitcomb's body showed no wounds. Poirot gave a small, cold smile. Inspector, you assume murder must be bloody. No, a push, a fall, poison. Many ways exist. But even if Whitcomb was not stabbed, the murderer handled the dagger. He tapped the envelope. And the ruby chipped? Poirot rose to full height. Find the person whose clothing carries ruby dust, or a cut finger from handling a sharp jewel. As Poirot stepped back from the tapestry, the floor creaked faintly. Not under their feet, but across the room. He turned sharply. The wardrobe door was now fully open. Poirot had closed it earlier. Arslan moved swiftly toward it, hand on his pistol. Inside, nothing. Only a faint warmth remained. Someone had stood inside very recently. Poirot frowned. I do not like this, Inspector. The murderer returns to the scene, bold, foolish, or desperate. Arslan slammed the wardrobe. We must search every room. Poirot shook his head. No. A murderer who hides inches from us will leave no prints. Their fear reveals only one thing. They are still inside this palace, and they believe they can evade us. Poirot stepped back into the hall. He paused. The faint scent of sandalwood drifted past him again. Ah, he murmured, a familiar fragrance returns. He followed it halfway down the hall, until it vanished abruptly near a corner. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Sandalwood, but this time mixed with sea salt. Poirot and Arslan spent another hour in the suite, documenting every detail: the footprints, the dust patterns, the chipped ruby, the open window, and the lingering scent. Finally, Poirot closed his notebook. That is enough for now, Inspector. The room has given us all she can. Arslan looked doubtful. You think we have enough to identify a suspect? Poirot placed a finger against his moustache thoughtfully. We have enough to know our murderer is clever, bold, and familiar with both this palace and Mr. Whitcomb. He turned slowly toward Arslan. And I have begun to suspect a second crime. Arslan blinked. A second? Poirot gestured to the tapestry. The dagger. If someone murdered Whitcomb for it, then they did not kill him only to silence him. Poirot's eyes sharpened. They killed him to steal something far greater. Arslan's face paled. The dagger itself. Poirot bowed softly. Just so. He stepped out of the suite, closing the heavy doors behind him. And now, Inspector, Poirot said elegantly, we must interview the suspects. Chapter 3. Whispers in the Mosaic Hall. The wind had begun to rise around the Turkish Palace by the time Hercule Poirot concluded his preliminary interviews, rattling the carved shutters like fingernails drumming on a coffin lid. Inside, the grand mosaic hall was dimly lit, every stained glass tile catching fractured reflections of passing lanterns. A sense of impermanence clung to the room, as though its very stones were waiting for the next revelation. Poirot stood alone for a moment, hands folded behind his back, surveying the patterned marble beneath his feet. C'est curieux, he murmured, so much beauty, and yet so much malice beneath it. His moustaches twitched, as if reacting to a private disturbance in the air. The hall smelled faintly of incense, too faint, controlled, measured, deliberate, a detail that did not escape his meticulous mind. He knelt, studying the mosaic centerpiece. An elaborate Ottoman compass rose, its tiles arranged in perfect symmetry. Yet the faint scuff marks near the northeastern quadrant suggested someone had knelt here recently. Someone wearing shoes with thin leather soles, judging by the shallow semicircular impressions. Poirot tapped his cane lightly. And for what purpose, mon ami inconnu? To pray? To hide something? Or to retrieve what another intended to keep from you? As though summoned by his thoughts, a sharp clatter echoed from the far corridor. Poirot turned instantly. Who is there? A shadow flitted across the columned archway, too swift to identify. But he recognized the direction, the private wing leading toward Lord Selim's study. He moved without haste yet without hesitation, allowing the echo of his steps to warn the intruder that Hercule Poirot did not stalk, he announced. The corridor narrowed and darkened as he went. Here the palace's beauty transformed into something more secretive. The tapestries depicted ancient battles, their woven figures forever frozen mid-strike. Lamps flickered nervously, dimming as though bowing to his presence. Halfway down, he paused. A faint whisper drifted from behind the heavy cedar door of the study, not a voice, paper, repeatedly brushed, turned, disturbed. Poirot pushed open the door. Lord Selim's study was an exquisite blend of old-world scholarship and modern 1930s elegance. Brass-rimmed globes, a vast walnut desk, and shelves filled with manuscripts and atlases. But tonight it was in disarray. Drawers half open, maps unfurled across the floor like discarded battle plans. Standing at the desk, her hand trembling slightly over an open ledger, was Countess Mirella Vaduva. Ah, Monsieur Poirot. She pressed her palm to her collarbone. You startled me. But of course, Poirot replied with a soft bow. A person searching through another man's private papers seldom expects company. Her amber eyes flashed. I am not searching. Her voice tightened. I am trying to understand how a man like Lord Selim could die on his own terrace without anyone seeing or hearing anything. Poirot stepped closer. Then you will permit me to inquire why you began this quest only after the body was removed, when you had ample opportunity earlier. She faltered, her posture stiffening as though a hidden string had been abruptly pulled taut. I was overwhelmed. I needed time. Poirot glanced at the ledger. Its pages were covered in elegant script. Half Ottoman, half French, numbers, shipping barges, names, and a margin notation, 5th key, protected until the shifting of the moon. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Another puzzle piece. Another symbolic phrase. He touched the page lightly. The 5th key, madame. What significance does this hold? Countess Mirella recoiled with unusual sharpness. I do not know, and I suggest you do not either. But I will know, Poirot said gently, and soon. Her breath grew shallow, as if she were fighting an impulse to flee. But then, with a surprising calm, she closed the ledger and stepped past him. You think you see everything, Monsieur Poirot? She whispered, but you are in a house full of people who wear beautiful masks. Do not assume all masks hide ugliness. Some protect against it. When she was gone, Poirot murmured to the empty room, but it is precisely the beauty of the mask that interests me. He reopened the ledger, taking great care not to disturb the dust patterns around it. The page preceding the 5th key reference had been torn out, recently, judging by the crisp fibres left in the binding. So, he mused, someone removed a page, and someone else searched for it. 2 intrusions, 1 objective. He turned slowly toward the balcony door, open. The curtains billowed inward, revealing the terrace where Lord Selim had died. Moonlight painted the stone in silver. Poirot stepped outside. The terrace felt different tonight, emptier, almost echoing the absence of its fallen master. Below, the Bosphorus churned with dark waves, their rhythm steady but slightly agitated, like a heartbeat under duress. He examined the balustrade. The faint smear of blood remained where he had seen it earlier, though the sea air had begun to thin it. A struggle? Or merely the angle of the fall? Poirot crouched to inspect the corner pillar. His fingers found a shallow indentation, metallic, narrow, deliberate. A tool mark, he said softly, not from the fall, but from the removal of something. He traced it to a tiny mechanism hidden beneath the stone, a lock barely an inch in size, expertly concealed. And this, he whispered, is new. He pressed it lightly. Click. A compartment opened, revealing a small velvet pouch. Poirot exhaled through his nose. Voila! Inside the pouch lay a coin, old, bronze, etched with a double-headed imperial emblem, worn nearly smooth. Around its edge, 5 star-shaped points, each filled with a different symbol. The 5th key. No other term could possibly be more appropriate. A relic, Poirot murmured, or perhaps a codex. But why hide it? And why kill for it? He held it toward the moonlight. Its surface reflected faintly, too faintly. Poirot saw it immediately. Someone had rubbed the coin recently, cleaned it, removed residue, not for preservation, for concealment. Before he could ponder further, footsteps echoed behind him. Heavy, confident. Poirot turned. Captain Emre Arslan, Selim's security chief, stood in the doorway, his broad silhouette blocking the candlelight from the study. His jaw was clenched hard enough to crack stone. Inspector Poirot, he said, voice gravelly. You were instructed to remain in the public wings. The private quarters are off limits. Poirot slipped the pouch into his pocket. "Then you must instruct your people more clearly, mon capitaine. Someone else has been here before me." Emre's eyes darted to the open ledger, the torn page, the balcony. "And you accuse me of intrusion?" "I accuse no one," Poirot said pleasantly. "I merely observe. That is my profession." Emre stepped closer, towering over him. "Lord Selim had enemies, yes, but he also had protectors. Do not make the mistake of thinking you are the only one investigating." Poirot smiled thinly. "Ah, but the difference, Captain, is that I do not investigate to protect the living. I investigate to speak for the dead." For a moment, the two men stared at each other. Poirot calm and unblinking, Emre rigid as an Ottoman sentinel carved from granite. Then Emre turned sharply on his heel and left. Poirot watched him go, then whispered, "The man is hiding something, but is he hiding his guilt or another's?" He returned to the mosaic hall, the velvet pouch weighing heavily in his pocket. For the first time since arriving at the palace, Poirot felt the faint stirrings of a far greater design, one that stretched beyond a single death, beyond hidden compartments and coded ledgers. He felt the shape of a conspiracy, and somewhere within it, a murderer waited. The hall's lamps flickered once more, as if the palace itself exhaled, and Poirot whispered to its shadows, "I am coming, mon ami meurtrier, I am coming." Chapter 4. The Lanterns of the Lower Wing. The palace lamps guttered as a cold draught wound through the lower corridors, carrying with it a faint scent of myrrh. It drifted like a thin ribbon of ghostly perfume, weaving itself between tapestries and archways, growing stronger as Hercule Poirot descended the eastern staircase. Each step creaked. Old wood, older secrets. He paused at the landing, eyes narrowing. A single lantern had been left burning at the foot of the staircase, its wick trimmed with unusual care. Too deliberate, too precise. Someone had been here recently, and that someone wanted visibility, either for the sake of stealth or safety. Poirot leaned over the balustrade. The flame quivered, as though stirred by a breath that did not belong to the living. "The palace does not sleep tonight," he murmured. Ahead lay the lower wing, the oldest section of the Turkish palace, where the stone walls bore cracks like long-forgotten scars. Servants avoided it after dusk, preferring the warmth of the modern kitchen halls. Rumours clung to these passageways, stories of hidden vaults and imperial relics, of sultans who concealed what they valued most, not in gold ceilings, but in plain stone, which made it, naturally, the place Poirot wished to explore first. He reached the bottom stair and lifted the lantern. At once, shadows sprang to life across the corridor, long, crooked silhouettes that danced like uncertain phantoms. Poirot felt the weight of an unseen watcher, not hostile, observant, curious. "Show yourself," he announced without raising his voice. "It is impolite to observe Hercule Poirot without so much as a bonsoir." A moment of silence. Then a soft footstep echoed. From behind the latticework panel emerged Nadir Selim, nephew of the late Lord Selim. His youth, no more than 23, was marked by dark circles beneath his eyes, as if he had not slept in days. His clothing was refined but rumpled, and his fingers twitched with barely contained agitation. "Monsieur Poirot," Nadir said, rubbing his thumb over his palm, "I was told you were still in the upper halls." "Then you were told incorrectly," Poirot replied. "May I ask why you wander the abandoned wing at such an hour?" Nadir hesitated, jaw tightening. "I needed air." Poirot tilted his head, One does not typically seek air in dusty corridors that smell of stone and old stories, mon garçon. Nadier's eyes flicked to the floor. I grew up in these halls. There are memories here. I find comfort in them. Poirot saw the lie instantly, not because of the boy's words, but because of the way he shifted from one foot to the other, as though prepared to run. Fear or guilt? Comfort, Poirot murmured, or secrecy? Nadir stiffened. Are you accusing me? I accuse no one until the little grey cells permit it, Poirot said mildly. But I observe that you arrive here moments after the scent of incense, which does not linger without reason. And I observe, too, that your hands are shaking. Nadir instinctively clenched them. It's cold. It is warmer here than on the terrace, where your uncle died, Poirot said softly. A brief silence fell, heavy, thick as velvet. Nadir swallowed. I had nothing to do with his death. I believe you, Poirot said. Nadir blinked, startled. Poirot continued. But belief does not absolve you from suspicion. What do you hide? The young man's composure broke. He leaned against the wall, breathing hard. You don't understand. My uncle, he was involved in things that are not... He paused, lowering his voice. Not meant for daylight. Poirot stepped closer. Such as? Nadir hesitated. He told me that symbols were returning, that the palace would be tested, that the 5 keys would decide who was worthy. Poirot's brows arched high. Your uncle spoke to you of the 5 keys? Yes, Nadir whispered, but only in fragments. He said the palace had awakened. Poirot's expression remained serene, but inside the pieces shifted. Mysticism, ritual, possibly superstition, or possibly an elaborate cover. You believe your uncle was frightened, Poirot said. Nadir nodded. More than frightened, obsessed. He dismissed most of the staff. He refused to sleep in his chambers. He talked about voices in the walls and shadows that search without eyes. I tried to help him, but he would not listen. Was he ill? No, Nadir said with a sudden firmness. Not ill, determined. Poirot considered this. And you? Were you part of his plans? Nadir's face drained of colour. No, he intended to leave everything to me, but then, 3 weeks ago, he changed his will. To whom? I don't know, Nadir breathed. His solicitor has not yet announced it. But when I asked, he said my uncle wished to protect the rightful heir. What does that even mean? Poirot tapped his cane gently against the stone floor. It means, mon ami, that there is more to this palace, its relics, its history, its secrets, than you imagine. Before Nadir could reply, a low metallic groan resonated through the corridor. Both men froze. Poirot lifted the lantern. A door at the end of the hall was slowly swinging open, heavy wood, iron-banded, ancient. No breeze had touched it. No servant had approached it. Nadir stepped back in terror. That room is sealed. It has been sealed for decades. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Then someone has unsealed it tonight. He advanced toward the door, each step careful, deliberate. The lantern's glow carved a narrow tunnel of light through the dust-filled air. When he reached the threshold, he saw iron scratches on the lock plate. Fresh, harsh, forceful. Who opened this? Nadir whispered. Poirot did not answer. He pushed the door fully open. Inside was a small chamber. Bare walls, a stone floor, no furniture. Only dust, silence, and emptiness. Except Poirot knelt. There, half hidden beneath grime, lay a strip of fabric, rich burgundy silk, embroidered with a gold crest. Lifted it. Nadir gasped. That belonged to Countess Mirella. Poirot folded the fabric carefully. So it seems. But why would she come here? That is what we must discover, Poirot murmured. Unless... A sudden slam echoed through the corridor. Nadir flinched violently. "What was that?" Poirot straightened. "The palace doors are closing for the night, but perhaps also someone does not wish us to leave this wing just yet." He extinguished the lantern flame with a soft puff. Darkness closed in, thick and intimate. Poirot whispered to the void, "Whoever you are, you make a grave mistake haunting these halls." A faint hiss, like an exhalation, answered him. Not wind, not imagination, a presence. Poirot felt it withdraw, swift, purposeful. Then silence returned. The detective turned to Nadir. "We must go. The game becomes more dangerous." Together they stepped back toward the staircase, the shadows swallowing their retreat. But Poirot felt the weight of the burgundy silk in his pocket, and knew the palace had just revealed another piece of its labyrinthine heart. Chapter 5. Echoes behind the silk door. The Turkish palace greeted the dawn with an uneasy stillness, as though exhausted by its night of restless murmurs. Pale sunlight barely pierced the high windows, casting long streaks of diluted gold across the marble floors. Hercule Poirot entered the central conservatory, where the soft rustle of palm leaves mingled with the distant hum of the Bosphorus. He always preferred the morning. Clarity, order, the rational mind restored. But today, even the light felt cautious. Poirot positioned himself beneath a domed skylight and unfolded the burgundy silk he had recovered from the sealed room in the lower wing. It gleamed richly in the daylight, its gold crest unmistakable. Countess Mirella's sigil, a stylized falcon clutching a ring. "So, madame," he murmured, "you wander in places where dust has slept for decades. Why?" Before he could pursue the question further, a voice cut through the air. "Monsieur Poirot, you rise early." The Countess herself stepped into the conservatory, draped in a pale lavender morning gown. She looked composed, almost ethereal, yet her eyes held a tightness that had not been there the night before. "Madame," Poirot greeted warmly, "forgive me if I intrude upon your morning solitude." "You are never an intrusion," she said with a slight bow of her head, "though you search the palace as though it were a puzzle meant solely for you." Poirot smiled gently. "Perhaps it is." He watched her closely. She moved like a figure balancing on fractured glass, graceful, cautious, aware that one wrong step might reveal something she wished to keep hidden. "Madame," Poirot began, "may I ask where you were last night around midnight?" Her gaze sharpened just for a moment. "In my chambers, reading, as any lady would do. Why?" Poirot held the silk quietly between his fingers, letting the gold thread shimmer. Her lips parted slightly, but she recovered with a controlled inhale. "That is mine," she said. "Oui, I thought so. Where did you find it?" "In a chamber long sealed, yet visited recently." Mirella drew closer. "Then you suspect I entered this room?" "I suspect," Poirot replied, "that this palace conceals many entrances and many reasons to use them." A flicker crossed her face. Not guilt. Something more complex, fear. But before the conversation could deepen, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed through the corridor. Dr. Kamal Darzi, the palace physician, appeared in the doorway, breath shallow. "Monsieur Poirot, the caretaker, old Yusuf, he's asking for you urgently." Poirot tucked the silk into his pocket. "Take me to him." Yusuf, the palace's eldest servant, lay on a cushioned divan in the staff quarters, his face pale and drawn. His hands trembled uncontrollably. He stared at Poirot as though the detective were both salvation and threat. "Effendi Poirot," he whispered with cracked lips, "I saw something last night." Poirot soothed him gently. "Speak slowly, mon ami." Yusuf swallowed hard. "I was carrying linens through the lower wing. I heard footsteps, soft, too soft for a man. I thought perhaps it was the wind whispering through the stones, but then I saw it. Saw what? Poirot asked. A shadow, Yusuf breathed. Long, stretched, moving like liquid. No body, only shape. It went into the old chamber. Nadir, standing beside the door, looked shaken. You see, Monsieur Poirot? Even the servants felt something unnatural. Poirot raised a hand. Let us not allow imagination to dress itself in the costume of truth. He returned to Yusuf. The shadow. Was it tall, short, limping, hurried? Yusuf blinked. Not tall, not short. It shifted, like smoke. Poirot considered this. More likely the lantern's flame distorting, or someone using the corners to hide their form. But tell me, did you recognize a scent? Yusuf hesitated. Yes, myrrh. Poirot nodded slowly. Thank you. You have helped more than you know. The old man relaxed, sinking back into the cushions. When Poirot stepped into the corridor, Nadir caught his arm. Monsieur, you believe him now, don't you? You believe there's something unnatural in this palace. Poirot's expression softened. I believe, mon garçon, that fear can distort shadows into demons, but shadows come from something real. His eyes narrowed thoughtfully, and so far, everything real points to someone who wishes to appear unreal. Nadir's face paled. You mean someone is pretending to be a spirit? Poirot did not answer. He moved briskly toward the mosaic hall. By midday, Poirot had gathered 3 items on the central table. The bronze coin, the 5th key, the torn burgundy silk. A vial of myrrh. Pilfered earlier from a forgotten alcove in the caretaker's storeroom, Captain Emre entered with a stern expression. Poirot! The staff reports you are questioning everyone. You are disrupting order. Order, Poirot said quietly, is already broken. Emre's jaw tightened. Then fix it, quickly. Poirot met his gaze. Tell me, Captain, did Lord Selim speak to you before he died about changing his will? Emre hesitated, just slightly. He mentioned only that he wished to ensure the palace's legacy. His exact intentions I do not know. Poirot did not look away. And yet you were his most trusted guardian. Emre's nostrils flared. I guard his palace, not his secrets. Poirot noted the phrasing, a very careful phrasing. He dismissed the captain. When the hall was empty once more, Poirot held the coin to the light. The 5 symbols carved around its edge caught the sunlight in uneven glints. He traced his finger over the 5th star, its groove deeper than the rest. A key, he murmured, but to what? Behind him, the stained glass flickered with shifting shadows. The palace seemed to breathe, as if listening. Poirot closed his eyes a moment. But your killer, he whispered, he's not a ghost. He is a man or a woman, and he grows bolder. He pocketed the coin, straightened his cuffs, and stepped toward the north corridor. One more mask to lift, he said softly, and then the picture will sharpen. From somewhere deep in the palace came a faint metallic click, as though another hidden door had just opened. Chapter 6. The Chamber of Shifting Light. The sound, sharp, metallic, deliberate, reverberated through the stone passages of the Turkish palace long after its source had vanished. Hercule Poirot paused beneath the archway of the north corridor, tilting his head with feline precision. A hidden door opening suggested one of 2 things: someone was fleeing, or someone was watching. He tapped his cane lightly. The palace reveals itself piece by piece, yes, but always with a certain theatricality. The corridor ahead was lined with tall ornamental mirrors framed in brass. A curious architectural choice. Each mirror reflected the morning sun in fractured segments, creating a shimmering illusion as though the hall were filled with rippling water. Poirot's footsteps appeared multiplied, one version steady, another wavering, a third elongated grotesquely by the curve of the glass. As he passed one of the mirrors, he stopped. A smudge, barely visible, lingered across the lower right corner. Poirot leaned closer. It was not dust, not age, it was oil, the kind left by gloved fingers. He raised his brows. Someone touched this, recently, and in haste. He pushed gently against the mirror's frame. A faint click. The mirror swung inward slightly, just enough for Poirot to glimpse a sliver of shadowed space behind it. A secret passage, he breathed, most inconvenient, for the murderer. He slipped inside. The passage was narrow, barely wide enough for Poirot's shoulders. Rough stone walls pressed close, the scent of dust and cold trapped air thick against his nose. The lantern he carried cast a muted glow, revealing the faint footprints of a single person ahead of him. Small, precise, with tread worn unevenly on the right heel. "Madame Mirella," Poirot said softly, "or someone wishing me to believe so." He followed the prints deeper until the passage opened into a small octagonal room. High above, ventilation slits allowed slivers of sunlight to fall in narrow beams, illuminating the air like drifting pillars of gold. And that was when he noticed the floor. Another mosaic, but this one differed from the ornate compass in the central hall. This mosaic depicted 5 interlocking shapes, stars, circles, crescents, each filled with distinctive markings. Ancient, geometric, symbolic. Poirot knelt, fingers hovering an inch above the tiles. "The 5 keys," he whispered, "not merely a metaphor, a map." He stood, stepping lightly across the pattern, examining each symbol. When he reached the 5th shape, his lantern flickered. A breeze passed, soft, cold, impossible, so deep within the palace. Then a whisper curled through the chamber, so faint Poirot wondered if the palace itself murmured to him, "Return, return." Poirot turned sharply. "Is someone there?" Silence answered. He exhaled, adjusting his tie. "Calm yourself, Hercule. Shadows and superstition are the twin weaknesses of the imaginative mind." Yet something felt undeniably wrong. Not supernatural, no, but orchestrated, timed. As though another mind played chess with him from behind the palace walls. He inspected the room further. Opposite the mosaic was a shelf carved directly from the stone. On it sat a small bronze bowl filled with hardened resin. He scraped a bit with his fingernail. "Myrrh," he murmured, so the presence Yusuf described was no apparition. Someone is using incense to create an atmosphere of dread. He replaced the resin, turning just as another sound reached him. Footsteps, fast approaching, not from behind, from above. Poirot stepped back just as a wooden panel in the ceiling slid open. Dust rained down. A figure dropped into the chamber with surprising agility, landing in a crouch. Poirot raised his lantern high. "Ah, Captain Emre, what extraordinary entrances you make!" The captain straightened, brushing off dust. His eyes flashed with irritation. "Poirot! I ordered this wing sealed off." "And I," Poirot replied gently, "ordered nothing at all. Yet here we both stand, we?" Emre's gaze swept the room, narrowing when it landed on the mosaic. "This chamber is forbidden." "Forbidden places," Poirot said, "are often the most informative." Emre stepped closer. Too close. "You are meddling in matters beyond your authority." "No," Poirot corrected. "I am meddling precisely within them." The captain's jaw clenched. "You have no idea what this palace holds." Poirot's voice softened. "Oh, but I am beginning to. The scent of myrrh, the hidden doors, the secret meetings in sealed rooms, and a dead man who feared shadows rather than assassins." Emre's fists tightened. "Leave this place, now!" Poirot studied him carefully. The man's shoulders were rigid, the muscles in his cheek twitching, a classic sign of suppressed alarm. "Captain," he asked quietly, "what are you protecting, the palace or yourself?" For a heartbeat, Emre's mask slipped. Just enough for Poirot to see guilt or grief. Then the mask snapped back. "I protect the legacy of Lord Selim, nothing more." Poirot knew the statement was incomplete, perhaps intentionally. He gave a courteous bow. "Very well, for now." He started toward the passage. Behind him, Emre called out, "If you keep searching, you will find something you cannot unsee." Poirot paused in the doorway. "My dear Captain, Hercule Poirot rarely unsees anything." Emerging back into the sunlight of the north corridor felt jarring. The mirrors reflected his lantern's fading glow, distorting it into ghostly fragments. He closed the hidden door carefully. As he moved toward the grand hall, a new voice called from behind, "Poirot!" He turned to find Dr. Kamal running toward him, out of breath, spectacles askew. "What is it, mon docteur?" Kamal's voice trembled. Another discovery. In Lord Selim's private vault. Something troubling. Poirot's eyes sharpened. "Show me." The vault was a small chamber, accessible through a wrought iron door, hidden behind a tapestry of Ottoman warriors. Inside, shelves of manuscripts and dusty artifacts lined the walls. One shelf stood empty, a clear rectangle of undisturbed stone where something heavy had once rested. Kamal pointed to a stack of papers on Selim's desk. These were hidden beneath the drawer. Poirot spread them out carefully. Drawings, symbols, notes in Selim's frantic handwriting. And at the top of one page, only one must hold the fifth key. If it falls into the wrong hands, the palace will be undone. Poirot whispered, "So the relic is a key not of metal, but of knowledge, power." Then something else caught his eye. A single line, underlined twice. "The one who shadows me is not my enemy, but my heir." Kamal touched Poirot's shoulder. "You think this refers to Nadir?" Poirot shook his head slowly. "No, I think Selim meant someone else." He folded the papers, placing them inside his coat. Another piece of the puzzle had clicked. But the final picture remained hazy. He stepped into the hall once more, whispering to himself, "The shadows are narrowing, and soon one of them will reveal the murderer." A gust of cold wind swept through the palace. Chapter 7. The circle narrows. The palace felt different now, quieter, as though the very walls were inhaling before a storm. As Hercule Poirot crossed into the south wing, his polished shoes clicked against marble with a solemn rhythm. He walked slowly, fingertips grazing carved pillars, while his mind raced through Lord Selim's hidden notes. "The one who shadows me is not my enemy, but my heir. Not Nadir, not Emre. Then who?" Poirot stopped under a chandelier shaped like a blooming iron rose. "Ah, mon ami Selim," he murmured, "you wrapped your secrets with the precision of a mathematician and the drama of a poet." He proceeded toward the library, one of the last places he had not visited since the investigation began, but halted when he found the doors open. Lady Aylin stood inside, her posture rigid, her gaze fixed on the ornate murals. The light filtering through stained glass cast fractured colours upon her hair, giving her an ethereal glow. She did not turn as Poirot entered. "I knew you would come here," she said quietly. Poirot's moustache twitched. "And how, madame, could you predict the steps of Poirot?" "Because Selim did." She finally faced him, eyes red from lack of sleep. This was his favourite room. He said that if he ever died, This room would keep telling the truth. Poirot inclined his head respectfully. Then it is fortunate that I, too, enjoy rooms that speak. She gave a faint, humourless smile. You think someone in this palace murdered him? That a relic, an imaginary key, drove them? Poirot stepped closer. Madame, objects are rarely worth killing for. Belief in the object, however. Ah, that is a more powerful weapon. Aylin's expression trembled. Selim believed in it. Whatever the fifth key was, it consumed him. He stopped sleeping. He spoke to shadows. He wrote until his hands shook. Poirot studied her carefully. You speak of him with concern, not fear. I loved him, she said simply. That is why I am terrified now. Poirot opened his mouth to reply, but a sharp thump echoed from the upper balcony of the library. He raised a hand. Aylin froze. Another sound. Light, rhythmic footsteps. Poirot moved toward the staircase, steps measured and impossibly soft, his senses tightening like violin strings. He ascended carefully, lantern in hand, peering into the dim gallery lined with ancient scrolls. A figure darted between shelves. Stop! Poirot called. The figure hesitated, then bolted toward the far exit. Poirot gave chase. His shoes tapped with rapid precision, but the intruder moved like a shadow weaving through narrow aisles. Poirot caught only glimpses. A dark robe, a slender build, gloved hands. They reached the far door, but it was locked. The figure spun around sharply. For a moment, they faced each other across the narrow balcony. Poirot lifted his lantern. A girl, no older than 17. Her eyes widened in terror. Poirot softened his posture. Mademoiselle, you do not look like a murderer. She pressed herself against the wall, trembling. I didn't do anything, I swear. Poirot lowered his lantern further. Then let us speak calmly. Her breath shook. They said, if I ever spoke, if I ever told anyone. Poirot took a gentle step forward. Who said this? Before she could answer, a violent crash erupted downstairs. Aylin screamed. The girl flinched, then shoved past Poirot with surprising force. By the time he turned, she was descending the second staircase, fleeing into the maze of corridors. Poirot did not pursue. He ran to the first floor instead. What he found halted him mid-step. Lady Aylin stood pale and shaking beside a shattered glass case. Inside, ancient documents lay scattered, some ripped, others crumpled as if someone had searched them desperately. At the center of the destruction lay a small metal box, opened by force. Nothing inside. Poirot approached. Madame, what happened? Aylin touched the broken glass with trembling fingers. Someone came running through the side entrance. I saw only a blur. They smashed the case, took something, then fled. Poirot crouched beside the box. Its interior was lined with velvet. A perfect imprint marked where an object the size of a book had once rested. Was anything kept here? He asked. A journal, she whispered. Selim's private one. The only writing he never let anyone read. Poirot's heart thudded. Then this is significant, most significant. He examined the scattered papers. Ink stains, smudges, torn edges. But one slip of paper had survived untouched, caught between two fallen books. Poirot picked it up. A single symbol adorned it, a small crescent intersected by 5 lines. And again, the motif of 5, he murmured, always 5. Aylin swallowed. Poirot, do you know what the 5th key is? I have a theory, he began. But something made him pause. A presence. Someone was watching them. Poirot turned slowly, scanning the upper balcony. Empty, too empty. Then a faint metallic scrape. Poirot strode toward the sound, glancing behind a row of bookshelves. A silver hairpin lay on the floor. Elegant, sharp-tipped, very sharp. Aylin's voice wavered. That isn't mine. No, Poirot agreed, but it belongs to someone who uses second-floor balconies to observe unnoticed. He pocketed the pin, the girl upstairs, the vanished journal, the secret chamber, Captain Emre's hostility, and Selim's final warning. Each clue moved not independently, but together, like pieces of a star-shaped pattern. 5 pointed, 5 keys, 5 suspects, 5 secrets. Poirot clasped his hands behind his back. "Lady Aylin, you must stay with Dr. Kamal. You are not safe." She nodded, though fear lingered in her eyes. Poirot exited into the hall. There, Yusuf approached with caution. "Monsieur Poirot, the guards found new footprints near the east gate. Someone may have attempted to leave." Poirot's brows rose. "May, or succeeded. We are not sure. The trail ends near the outer wall." Poirot tapped his cane lightly. "Then we gather the household. Everyone. No one leaves. No one hides." "And you?" Yusuf asked. Poirot's gaze drifted toward the distant tower, where the wind whistled like a warning. "I," he said softly, "go to confront the only person who has lied to me with too much sincerity." The sun was lowering over the palace when Poirot ascended the stone steps toward the old astronomical observatory, long unused, except by someone determined to avoid attention. He pushed open the heavy wooden door. Inside, among dust-covered celestial maps and rusted telescopes, stood Captain Emre, waiting, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Poirot closed the door behind him. "Ah, mon capitaine, I believe you and I must speak frankly." Emre's eyes narrowed. "So, you found something?" Poirot stepped into the fading light. "Enough to know that you have misled me. Enough to know that Selim trusted only one person with the location of his private journal." Emre's jaw tightened. "What are you accusing me of?" "Not murder," Poirot said softly. "Not yet." Emre hesitated. A fatal mistake. Poirot raised a finger. "But you know who stole the journal, and you know why." Emre's face collapsed, into defeat, not guilt. "It wasn't for myself," he whispered. "I was trying to protect her." "Her," Poirot echoed. "The girl." Emre nodded, and Poirot understood at last that the circle had indeed narrowed, but the truth inside it would be far darker. Chapter 8. The Girl in the Shadows. The observatory's thin windows rattled as night winds crawled around the ancient tower. Poirot waited, hands folded neatly, his silhouette framed by dying sunlight. Captain Emre stood opposite him, shoulders squared but spirit visibly fraying. The air between them carried the sharp tension of withheld truths. Poirot's tone was calm. "You were protecting the girl, the one who fled from the library. You knew she was hiding here long before Lord Selim died." Emre's defences stiffened. "I did. Then, mon capitaine," Poirot said softly, "you will now tell Hercule Poirot everything." Emre looked toward the brass telescope. Its lens pointed at a darkening horizon. Something in his posture shifted, as if a dam within him cracked. "Her name is Layla," he began. 17. Selim took her into the palace 2 months ago, secretly. Poirot's brows arched. "Secretly? Even from Lady Aylin?" "From everyone," Emre said. "She lived in the unused quarters beneath the south wing. He forbade her from stepping outside those walls." Poirot stroked his moustache thoughtfully. "A young girl, hidden away, a powerful man obsessed with a mythic key, and a terror in her eyes when she saw me." His gaze sharpened. "You believed she was in danger." "Selim changed," Emre said quietly. "He became paranoid, convinced that people were following him, stealing from him, hunting for his key." Poirot tilted his head. "And Layla?" "She had something he wanted," Emre replied. something she refused to give him. Poirot exhaled slowly. The fifth key. Emre nodded once, jaw tight. Poirot paced to the far side of the observatory, inspecting a constellation chart covered in dust. This girl, did she understand its significance? I don't know, Emre admitted, but she knew it frightened him. That was enough. Poirot turned sharply. And what of you, mon capitaine? Were you not afraid? Emre swallowed. I was. He was my friend. But what he became, he was no longer himself. Leila came to me one night. She begged for help. She said Selim intended to lock her away until she broke. Poirot's voice lowered. And so you hid her. I owed her that much, Emre whispered. I owed him that much, to stop him before he destroyed her. Poirot drew closer, eyes piercing. Was Selim dangerous to her? Truly? Emre hesitated. His silence was answer enough. Poirot let out a breath. Tell me, mon ami, was it you who stole the journal? No, Emre said firmly. I didn't go near it, but I knew someone would. Poirot studied him for a long moment. Emre's honesty was raw, unpolished, and painfully human, traits murderers rarely revealed. Very well, Poirot said. Where is the girl now? Emre stiffened. Safe. Poirot's eyes glinted. Safe? From whom? The question hung in the air until Emre broke, voice cracking. From Lord Selim's enemies, he said, and perhaps from his allies. Before Poirot could press further, heavy footsteps echoed up the observatory stairs. Yusuf appeared, breathless, eyes wide. Monsieur Poirot, we found something. You must come. Poirot nodded once to Emre. We are not finished. Then he followed Yusuf down the spiralling stone steps. The palace courtyard was awash in torchlight, shadows flickering like anxious spirits. Yusuf led Poirot to the eastern garden, a once peaceful sanctuary now patrolled by wary guards. Near a drained reflecting pool, Dr. Kamal crouched beside a bundle of fabric. When Poirot approached, Kamal lifted a torn cloak, deep wine red, embroidered with silver crescents. Poirot's eyes narrowed. This belonged to Lady Aylin. Kamal nodded grimly. We found it snagged on a branch near the outer wall. Poirot knelt, examining the tear, clean, forceful, made by someone dragging the cloth in haste. Lady Aylin has been missing for the last half hour, Yusuf added softly. Poirot's fingers stilled. Missing? Yes, her rooms are empty, no sign of struggle. Poirot rose slowly. Then she left willingly, or was lured. Kamal's voice wavered. Do you think she was taken? Poirot's gaze swept the garden, the sheer crushed jasmine petals, the bent reeds. No, there are two sets of tracks, one light, one heavier. He pointed to faint impressions in the dirt, and both moving toward the old crypt. Yusuf paled. You think Lady Aylin went down there? I think, Poirot said gravely, someone wished her to. The crypt beneath the palace was a labyrinth of ancient stone, carved centuries before Selim's ancestors claimed the land. Torches sputtered as Poirot, Yusuf, and two guards descended the cold staircase, their breath misting in the air. The moment they reached the bottom, Poirot sensed it. A presence, a whisper of movement, a displacement of air that belonged to someone hiding. Show yourself, Poirot commanded. Silence. Then, a soft sob. From behind one of the funerary alcoves, a figure emerged. Leila. Her eyes were swollen, her hair tangled, her breaths shallow with terror. Yusuf reached for her. Child, are you hurt? She flinched violently. Don't touch me. Poirot stepped forward, palms open. Mademoiselle, you are safe, but you must tell us, where is Lady Aylin? Leila shook her head, trembling. I tried to warn her, but she didn't believe me. She followed him. Poirot's heartbeat quickened. Followed who? Layla's lips parted in a whisper. The man who killed Selim. The crypt air grew colder. Poirot lowered himself so he was level with her. Child, you know who it is. Tears streamed down her face. Yes, I saw him that night. I saw everything, but I couldn't say it. He said he'd kill me. Poirot's voice softened like velvet. You are safe now, tell me. Layla clenched her fists. The truth warred with terror inside her, and then she spoke. It was Nadir. Her voice cracked. Selim's own nephew. Yusuf gasped. The guards exchanged horrified glances. Poirot did not move. His stillness was absolute, like a chess master who had expected the next piece to fall exactly where it did. Layla collapsed to her knees. I didn't mean to see it. I hid in the hall when they argued. Selim begged him to wait. Then Nadir pushed him. He hit his head, and Nadir just left him there. Poirot finally closed his eyes. One more secret, he murmured. One more lie. Yusuf's voice shook. Poirot, we must find Lady Aylin. If she is with Nadir. Poirot turned, eyes blazing with new clarity. No, he said, she is not with Nadir. The others stared in confusion. Poirot looked at Layla. Child, who did Lady Aylin follow? Layla lifted trembling fingers toward the staircase behind them. Poirot stiffened. It wasn't Nadir, she whispered. It was someone else, someone who said they would protect her. Poirot's breath caught. Who? Layla closed her eyes. Captain Emre. Chapter 9. The Descent of Truth. The silence that followed Layla's final whisper was so complete it seemed to press against the very bones of the crypt. Even the torches stilled, their flames frozen in thin, wavering lines. Poirot stood immobile, every nerve sharpened to a cold, surgical focus. Captain Emre, a protector, a liar, a man standing on the knife edge between loyalty and obsession. Poirot drew a slow breath. Mademoiselle, you are certain? Lady Aylin followed Captain Emre. Layla nodded, tears streaking her dusty cheeks. He told her he found something Selim wanted her to see. She trusted him. She went with him. Poirot's eyes flicked toward the spiral staircase above them. Emre's confession now spread before him like a fractured mirror. The guilt, the desperation, the failure to deny one question too many. Yusuf whispered, Poirot, if he intends to harm her. Poirot raised a hand. No. Emre does not wish Lady Aylin harm, but a man who believes himself the saviour may become something far more dangerous than a man who intends to kill. He turned to Layla. Child, did he tell her where he was taking her? Layla shook her head, hesitating. Then her gaze darted to a shadowed alcove behind the marble tombs. Poirot followed the line of her eyes. A door, hidden behind a sculpted pillar, nearly invisible unless one knew where to look. Iron-banded, ancient, carved with faded talismanic symbols. Poirot moved closer. The air grew colder. Yusuf exhaled sharply. I've never seen this before. Few have, Poirot murmured. This door predates the palace. It leads to the subterranean chambers. Tunnels designed for rituals, for safekeeping relics, and for the storage of things not meant for sunlight. He pressed his hand against the stone, still warm from recent touch. Emre and Lady Aylin passed through here. A guard stepped forward. Shall we force it open, sir? No. Poirot's voice lowered. If Emre believes he is cornered, he may act rashly. We must think as he thinks. He studied the carvings, tracing them with a gloved fingertip. 5 crescents, 5 lines, 5 points, the same symbol from Selim's note. Poirot's breath caught. The 5th key is not an object, it is a place. Yusuf stared. A place? Poirot nodded slowly, mind racing. Selim wrote of a chamber even he feared to enter, a place where the inheritance of shadow was kept. His eyes narrowed. Emre must have discovered it. Yusuf's anxiety deepened. If he takes Lady Aylin there, Poirot finished gravely, he may intend to finish what Selim began, or undo it. With sudden resolve, Poirot turned to the guards. Fetch lanterns, rope, and do not draw your weapons unless I command it. This is not a confrontation of violence, but of truth. As the guards hurried away, Poirot crouched beside Layla. Mademoiselle, you have done great courage, but now you must stay with Dr. Kamal. Do not follow us. Layla's voice trembled. Please, bring her back. She was kind to me. Poirot placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. I shall bring them both back, if it is still possible. Minutes later, with lanterns casting trembling halos on damp stone, Poirot pushed open the heavy door. It groaned, as though waking from centuries of slumber. A corridor stretched before them, narrow, arched, descending steeply into darkness. The smell of old earth and forgotten secrets rose to meet them. Yusuf followed close behind. Poirot, why would Emre bring her here? Because, Poirot said, he believes only she can protect the key, or perhaps destroy it. They descended. With every step the air thickened. Their lanterns cast warped shadows that danced like silent phantoms along the walls. Faint echoes whispered ahead, the scrape of stone, a distant flicker of movement. Poirot halted suddenly. A soft cry, Lady Aylin's voice. He moved faster, precision dissolving into urgency, until the tunnel opened into a vast circular chamber supported by 4 cracked pillars. Ancient sigils stretched across the floor in looping arcs. At the centre stood Captain Emre, and beside him, Lady Aylin, pale but unharmed, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. At the far end of the room lay a pedestal. Upon it rested a leather-bound journal, the missing relic of Selim's final secrets. Emre turned as Poirot entered, lantern light revealing the wild tension etched across his face. "Poirot," he said, voice tight, "you are not meant to follow." Poirot stood calmly at the chamber's threshold, and yet here I am. Aylin stepped forward, shakily. "Emre, what is this place? Why have you brought me here?" Emre's jaw clenched, because Selim wanted you to have the truth. This journal, it's yours. He wrote it for you. Poirot's eyes sharpened. Emre's lie trembled at the edges. "Emre," Poirot said quietly, "you believe yourself her guardian, but guardians protect. They do not deceive." Emre glared. "I deceived you, not her." Poirot stepped closer. "You hid Layla. You stole information. And now you have trapped Lady Aylin in a chamber no one else could find. You act not as a protector, but as a man drowning in his own guilt." Aylin whispered, "Guilt? Emre, what guilt?" The captain's breath hitched. His shoulders collapsed inward. "I failed him, Aylin," he said. "Selim was unraveling. I should have stopped him sooner. I should have taken that cursed key from him before it consumed him. Instead, I watched." Aylin's eyes softened, but Poirot remained rigid, unwavering. "And when Selim died," Poirot continued, "you feared the truth would point to you, because you had motive, means, opportunity." Emre flinched. "I didn't kill him." "I know," Poirot replied. "Layla saw Nadir push him, but you—" He pointed at the journal. "You feared Selim wrote something incriminating, so you sought to retrieve his final writings before they exposed your failures." Emre's voice cracked. "I only wanted to understand what he was chasing, why he needed Layla, why he feared everyone but me." "And instead," Poirot said softly, You became the final piece of his madness. The chamber fell silent. Aelin took a careful step toward Emre. "Emre, come back with us, please! You don't have to do this!" Emre's eyes shimmered. "I can't. If Selim's secrets come out, everything he built will crumble, and you'll be the one to suffer." Poirot's voice sliced through the air. "Lady Aelin is in danger only if you remain in this place." Emre trembled. He looked from Poirot to the journal to Aelin. And in that instant, something shifted. A flicker of clarity. A moment of release. He stepped back from the pedestal. But before Poirot could move, a second figure appeared in the chamber's doorway. Nadir. His shadow fell across the floor like a blade. Chapter 10. The last key turns. Nadir's silhouette stretched across the chamber, long and sharp like a blade forged from darkness. The torchlight behind him cast a hellish glow on the sigils carved into the floor. Captain Emre froze. Lady Aelin inhaled sharply. Yusuf's hand hovered instinctively near his belt. Only Poirot remained utterly still, an island of calm amid a storm about to break. Nadir stepped forward, eyes gleaming with cold purpose. "I see the rat has brought friends." His gaze flicked disdainfully over Emre, then narrowed at Poirot. "Monsieur, you do have an aggravating talent for survival." Poirot offered a small bow. "And you, monsieur, have a talent for arriving precisely when one wishes one had not invited you." Nadir smirked, drawing closer. "But you did invite me, Poirot. When you gathered the household, when you stirred the dust, I so carefully left untouched. You pointed the path straight here." Poirot did not blink. "You murdered your uncle." Lady Aelin gasped as if hearing it truly for the first time. Nadir shrugged. A push, a fall, a tragic accident. Selim was unstable for months. Everyone knew it. I merely gave him the ending he was too cowardly to choose himself. Poirot's voice hardened. "But you forgot the girl who saw you." Nadir's smile vanished. "The brat who hides in walls like a ghost?" Poirot continued. "And who feared you enough to run for her life. A witness, mon ami, is a terrible inconvenience." Emre's voice erupted from behind Poirot. "You stay away from her!" Nadir turned to him with mock sympathy. "Ah, the loyal dog, still guarding children and grieving widows. You always were pathetically sentimental." Emre lunged. Aelin cried out. Yusuf raised his lantern to blind Nadir's sightline. But Poirot stepped forward just enough to halt the collision. "Non," he commanded quietly. "Violence will only give him what he desires." Nadir's hand drifted near his coat. Whether for a weapon or simply to intimidate, Poirot could not yet tell. Poirot turned his attention to the pedestal. The journal lay atop it, innocent and damning at once. "It was never the key you wanted, Nadir," Poirot said. "You wanted what it protects. Selim's wealth, his legacy, and the secret he hid within these pages." Nadir stiffened. "You know nothing of these pages." Poirot's moustache twitched in triumph. "Au contraire, monsieur, I know everything. Selim wrote of his successor, his heir not of blood, but of mind. Someone who could wield the fifth key, which was not a relic but knowledge. Knowledge he discovered beneath this palace." Poirot swept a hand toward the chamber walls. "This place, this forgotten labyrinth." Aelin's breath trembled. "What knowledge?" Poirot turned to her gently. Selim decoded ancient maps. He believed this chamber concealed the original covenant of his dynasty, a code granting legal and spiritual authority over half the estates that now belong to the family trust. Yusuf's eyes widened. "Then whoever possesses the journal possesses the palace," Poirot finished. Nadir's jaw locked. It should have been mine, all of it. Selim kept promising to secure my future, but in the end he chose a stranger, a girl he brought into the palace like a stray. Poirot's gaze sharpened. Layla! Nadir spat the name. He intended to adopt her. Adopt her! An orphan, a nobody, raised to take my inheritance. Aylin gasped. Selim was going to adopt her. Poirot nodded. She was the daughter of an old friend. Selim had promised years ago to care for her. The fifth key was her birthright, the knowledge encoded in the journal. Selim believed only someone untouched by greed could be trusted with the truth. Nadir's voice shook with fury. So I acted first. I removed the obstacle. I would have dealt with the girl too, if Emre hadn't hidden her. Emre lunged again, but Poirot snapped, Enough! His voice rang through the chamber like a judge's gavel. Poirot stepped closer to Nadir, gaze burning with righteous fury. You killed a man who trusted you. You chased a child into shadows. And now you would take Lady Aylin hostage to finish what you began. Nadir's smile flickered dangerously. Hostage? No, Poirot. A witness, perhaps. A bargaining chip. He seized Lady Aylin's arm. She cried out. Emre roared and surged forward. But this time Nadir drew a knife from his sleeve and held it to Aylin's throat. No closer, he hissed. Aylin trembled, her pulse pounding visibly beneath the thin blade. Poirot lifted a hand, calming Emre. Let her go, Nadir. There is no escape for you here. Oh, but there is, Nadir hissed. There are tunnels leading miles from the palace. Once I'm gone, the journal comes with me, and by morning, Poirot cut him off softly. Do you truly think you can outrun the truth? Poirot's gaze drifted downward. Slowly, deliberately, to Nadir's feet, to the sigils drawn on the ancient floor, symbols forming a circle, a boundary. Nadir followed Poirot's gaze, confused. What are you staring at? Poirot spoke gently, almost mournfully. You stand within the fifth circle, an ancient snare, a protective ward designed not to imprison intruders, but to restrain anyone who spills blood within its bounds. Aylin's eyes widened. Selim spoke of this. Poirot nodded. The moment you drew your blade, the chamber sealed you within its oldest law. Nadir looked around wildly, but indeed the air itself felt heavier around him, as though the circle had turned to stone. Poirot raised his lantern. Step forward, monsieur, if you can. Nadir tried. His foot hovered over the circle's edge, then recoiled as if struck by an invisible force. He staggered, shock flooding his face. Poirot's voice resonated with finality. You see? Selim built this chamber to protect the truth, and now that same truth protects us. Aylin tore herself from Nadir's stunned grip. Emre caught her, pulling her safely behind him. Defeated, Nadir collapsed in the center of the sigil, breath shuddering. Poirot approached him, lantern casting judgmental shadows. Nadir Selimoglu, Poirot said softly, your uncle feared what greed could do. Tonight, you proved his fears correct. Nadir bowed his head, hands trembling. Poirot turned to the guards. Take him, and handle him gently. Rage such as his may yet burn itself out. The guards moved in, carefully avoiding the sigils. Emre stepped beside Poirot. It's over? Poirot looked toward the pedestal, the journal resting under his lantern's glow. No, he said quietly. Now it begins. Aylin approached, her voice barely a whisper. Poirot, what will become of Layla? Poirot smiled, warm and rare. She shall have what Selim wished for her, a future built on truth, not shadows. Aylin nodded, tears shimmering. Poirot closed the ancient journal carefully. As for the fifth key, it shall no longer be weapon or curse. He placed the journal into Aylin's hands. "It belongs," he said softly, "to the one who can wield it with wisdom." And as they ascended from the chamber, toward torchlight, toward dawn, the ancient door closed behind them with a final, echoing sigh. A chapter ended, a legacy reborn, a mystery laid to rest beneath the palace it once haunted.